What's up everybody, Atticus here. Today we're going to be covering a pre-PvP best in slot guide for rogues. First I'll talk about the best piece and where you can obtain it, and then I'll briefly mention other options. Now this is going to be solely focused on the best possible gear you can get before Phase 2 drops in Classic WoW. A lot of this will be tier gear, but this is the best way to combine the tier gear with certain other pieces to maximize your crit chance and attack power while also hitting your 5% hit cap for yellow damage and abilities. So to kick things off, let's talk about your head slot, Bloodfang Hood. This helm has the most agility and overall attack power that you can get. It also has 1% crit, which is obviously good, and it drops from Onyxia. Two other options that you can consider would be Night Slayer cover if you want extra crit, or Mask of the Unforgiven if you need extra hit. Neck piece. The best possible neck you can get is going to be Onyxia Tooth Pendant, which comes from the Onyxia head quest. But some other easier to obtain options with more attack power would be Mark of Forging or Will of the Martyr. Moving on to shoulders, and we have your first piece of the Night Slayer set. Night Slayer shoulder pads. These give you a substantial amount of agility and also 1% hit chance, but also a great reason to build the Night Slayer set is for the set bonuses they provide. The 3 set bonus, 30 seconds off of your vanish cooldown, is extremely useful in PvP, and the same goes for the extra 10 maximum energy from the 5-piece set bonus, which will obviously help you with your opener. And these are going to drop from Sulfuron and Molten Core. Two more great options are True Strike shoulders and Wormtongue shoulders. For Cloak, it's pretty straightforward. You got Cloak of the Shrouded Mist, which drops from Ragnaros and Molten Core. Huge amount of agility, and a few resistances can't hurt. The other Cloak options include Cape of the Black Baron and Stoneskin Gargoyle Cape. Your chest piece is going to be another tier piece. Night Slayer chest piece, which drops from Golemag, another piece with a big chunk of agility. Of course, that's what you want your primary focus to be on as far as stats go, but if you happen to find something like Cadaverous Armor with the amount of attack power it provides, it could be worth sacrificing some crit, and Shadowcraft Tunic would be your last resort. Luckily for your bracers, we've got a BOE piece from the Night Slayer set, Night Slayer Bracelets. So if you can't get these while raiding, you still have the option of buying them off the auction house. Another good option is Shadowcraft Bracers, but bracer options are also limited this early on, so the last option I could see being useful would be Wrist Guards of Stability for just the attack power alone. Up next, gloves. Night Slayer gloves. They drop from Gehennas in Molten Core, and they have some pretty decent stats and are going to help us round out our hit rating. Now, if we are having difficulty getting hit capped, Devilstar Gauntlets would be a good option combined with Devilstar Leggings. And lastly for gloves, Shadowcraft gloves are a good choice as well. And for your belt, we've got another BOE you can get from Trash Mobs in Molten Core or from the auction house, and that's Night Slayer belt. It has great stats and 1% crit, but not too far behind that in stats we've got Shadowcraft belt and Frostbite girdle, which we're using 6 pieces of Night Slayer and you only need 5 for that second set bonus, so you have the leeway to play around with a few pieces if you can't get all 6. Up next on the list, we've got our second piece of Bloodfang Pants. These are going to drop off of Ragnaros. The stat difference between these and Night Slayer pants is almost negligible, so if you come across Night Slayer before you can get Bloodfang, they will work just fine. Also, you won't be able to get the 3 set bonus from Bloodfang during Phase 1, so using Night Slayer instead won't be too impactful. And don't forget about Devilstar Leggings if you end up needing more hit. As far as for boots, our last tier piece, Night Slayer boots, which drop from Shazra in Molten Core. A substantial amount of agility, but also not a drastic difference between these and Swiftwalker boots and Shadowcraft boots. Obviously we want to get Night Slayer boots here, but any of these will work out just fine. And for your rings, there's a few options, but the best two are going to be Band of Ikuria, which comes from Ragnaros, and Quick Strike Ring, which comes from Magmadar, Baron Geddon, Golemag, and Gar. But some other options which are easier to obtain include Innervating Band, Band of Flesh, and Painweaver Band. And as for your trinkets, for any melee, there isn't really any options other than Hand of Justice, which drops from Emperor Dagron Tharasan in Blackrock Depths, and Blackhand's Breath, which is a quest reward from For the Horde for Horde, and General Drakasat's Demise for Alliance, which takes you into Lower Blackrock Spire, but not too hard to get. And when you start ranking, you're going to want to replace Blackhand's Breath with your PvP trinket. Ranged weapons have a few different options, but with all the gear I see being best in slot, I think your best bet is going to be Blaster Shot Launcher, which drops from Golemag in Molten Core. Although if you need more hit, you can get Striker's Mark or Black Crow, and if you would rather just have more attack power instead of crit, you can grab Rip Hook. I think no matter what you end up settling on, you should grab easier to obtain options for all gear slots that have hit on them, so you can always assure you'll be right at hit cap while maximizing your other stats. And last but not least, we've got weapons. As a rogue, you have many different ways you can spec, and each spec has its advantages and disadvantages. I think you should focus more on your playstyle as opposed to what someone says is the best or the worst. So that being said, here are the best weapons for each weapon type. First off, we have daggers. Perdition's Blade. This drops off Ragnaros in Molten Core, and Fellstriker, which drops from Rend in Upper Blackrock Spire. Perdition's Blade has great damage and is about as slow as daggers come, which means you'll get big crits. Also, it comes with a built-in fiery enchant, which is awesome. But the real jam to this weapon combination is Fellstriker's proc. Guaranteeing that all attacks in the next 3 seconds will be crits is insane, and you will definitely notice people melting when this procs. Other options for daggers would be Barman Shanker and Heartseeker, which are both pretty easy to get. Second, we've got maces. I absolutely love mace spec with a rogue. You already have a lot of stun, so it obviously isn't necessary. But say for example you end up proccing a stun from your spec, and you were just about to kidney shot them. Well now, instead, you can throw those combo points into something else that would benefit you in the fight, like a slice and dice or just a big eviscerate. Basically, I just look at the stun proc as free combo points. So, Ironfoe from Emperor Dagron Tharasan, and Hammer of the Vesper, which drops from 6 different bosses in Sholomance. Ironfoe basically has a sword spec proc built into it, which is essentially allowing you to spec into both combat maces and swords at the same time. So obviously this is amazing, especially in conjunction with Hand of Justice. And if you're Horde with Wind Fury, it just makes it so much better. Bone Chill Hammer and Bash Gooder are 2 other great options. I would actually say you could substitute Bash Gooder into your offhand slot with Ironfoe, just because it has an armor pin effect which could make you burst harder when Ironfoe or Hand of Justice or Wind Fury procs. Even though it's not as high damage of a weapon, this effect makes up for it. Third, we've got swords, the highest damage weapons overall that are available at this time. Viscag the Bloodletter, which drops from Onyxia, and Brutality Blade, which drops from Gar and Molten Core. Sword spec is great, but again, all dependent on your playstyle. You essentially get the same chance of burst procs as a Mace Rogue with Ironfoe, but you don't get the Mace stun. But you will be doing more damage overall. All about what you find more interesting or more fun to play, and you've obviously got the Dalryn set to consider as well here, along with Ebon Hilt of Marduk and Lord General's Sword. Lastly, we have fist weapons. There aren't a lot of great options here, and I wouldn't even use the weapons from the Escander's set as their attack speed is just far too fast, so if you are dead set on using fist weapons, I think your best bet would be Herd Smasher, which drops from Goki Bashgood in Lower Blackrock Spire, and Gargoyle Shredder Talons from Stonespine in Stratholme. On to enchants. For melee, most enchants are going to be pretty similar aside from primary stat prioritization, but for rogues we aren't worried about taking damage as much as say a warrior or an enhanced shaman, so I'm excluding enchants that offer health when you could instead get agility. So for helm and pants, you want to throw a Lesser Arcanum of Veracity on them. Nothing for shoulders since ZG won't be out yet. Cloak you'll want 3 agility. Chest you should grab 3 stats or 4 stats. Bracers get 9 strength or 7 strength. Gloves grab 7 agility. And for boots, I harp on this all the time, get minor speed. You need to have it for PvP. There is no worse feeling than someone being just outside of your melee range and watching them slowly gaining more distance between you because they have the enchant and you don't. And lastly, for weapons, I would go with Double Crusader for the double proc, but you could go with 15 agility if you want 1.5% more crit chance and a little more consistent attack power. It's really up to you. Well, that'll do it for the Pre-PvP Best in Slot Guide for Rogues. I plan on doing more of these in the future for other classes, so just let me know which ones you might want to see in the comments below. Leave a like on the video for me, subscribe, and of course, stay strong and stay hungry. See ya!